Josh didn't expect his new job to be exciting. He was just a human soldier. Hired to protect a visiting alien diplomat, he thought it would be easy just walk beside her, keep people away, and stay quiet. But the girl he was guarding wasn't normal. Her name was Tazeri, and she wasn't like the other aliens he had seen before. She had smooth, glowing blue skin and long silver hair. Her golden eyes didn't blink often, as she barely spoke. She wore a long robe that shimmered under the sunlight like it was made of water and stars. Josh was told not to ask too many questions, just to follow her and make sure she stayed safe. They were walking through the nature reserve on Earth's border region. It was quiet, peaceful, and green. Ziri liked to walk alone, sometimes going ahead while Josh stayed behind. That morning, she was acting strange. She kept looking around nervously, as if she was searching for something or hiding from someone. "Everything all right?" Josh asked, trying to sound casual. Ziri didn't answer. She just nodded and kept walking. But suddenly, without a word, she slipped off the trail and ran into the trees. Josh blinked, confused, then started running after her. "Hey, wait! Where are you going?" he shouted, pushing through thick branches. He followed the sound's footsteps, snapping twigs, then silence. Then he heard something strange. It sounded like glass. No, like pebbles hitting each other. Click, clack, tinkle. He stepped carefully into a small clearing and froze. Tazeri was crouched behind a bush, her back to him. She turned her head sharply when she heard him, her face filled with embarrassment and fear. "Don't look," she said quietly. "Please." Josh turned away immediately, confused and a little awkward. "I'm sorry, I thought you were in danger," he said, trying not to stare. After a moment, she stood up and walked past him, avoiding eye contact. Josh glanced at the ground where she had been. And that's when he saw them scattered in the grass like tiny pieces of treasure. Jewels, bright, sparkling, perfect gemstones. Red, green, blue, even clear like diamonds. They weren't fake. They weren't plastic. He could feel it. He reached down and touched one. Cold, heavy, real. "Did you drop these?" he asked slowly, his voice uncertain. Ziri looked down and bit her lip. "Yes," she said softly. "It's part of my biology." Josh's mind was spinning. "What do you mean?" he asked, trying to understand. She didn't answer. "Right away," then she whispered. "It happens when I process rare minerals. My body changes them, expels them." Josh took a step back, his mouth slightly open. "You're saying you poop jewels?" Tazeri winced, clearly uncomfortable. "It's not the same, but yes, if you want to say it like that." Josh didn't know whether to laugh, panic, or call for backup. His training told him to report anything unusual. This was beyond unusual. This was something governments and corporations would kill to study. And yet, he looked at her and she looked scared, not dangerous. "Does anyone else know?" he asked, his voice low. "No," she said quickly. "Please don't tell anyone." Josh was about to answer when he felt something in the air. A strange silence, like the forest itself was holding its breath. He turned around slowly and saw a flicker in the trees, a shape, a shadow, gone before he could focus. "We're being watched," he muttered, hand going to the sidearm on his belt. Ziri's face went pale. "I knew it," she said. "They must have followed me here." "Who?" Josh asked, already scanning the forest. "Collectors, hunters, black market traders," she whispered. "There are those who would pay anything to find someone like me." Josh looked at her, then back at the jewels on the ground. He picked up one, then dropped it into his pocket without thinking. "Let's move," he said, fast, as they began to walk quickly back toward the trail. Josh couldn't stop thinking. This wasn't just a job anymore. He wasn't just a guard. He was now protecting a living secret, one that could change the galaxy. But first, he had to keep her alive. even if it meant fighting whoever or whatever was already on their trail. Josh didn't speak for a long time as they walked through the forest. Siri stayed close now, her shoulders tense, her eyes flicking around every few seconds. The silence between them was heavy, filled with unspoken questions. Josh kept glancing at the shadows, feeling like eyes were on them. He had seen war, he had seen fear, and what he saw on her face now wasn't just worriette, was survival. He stopped and listened, the breeze moving leaves above them, far off. A branch cracked, soft, distant, but enough to make both of them freeze. Josh slowly turned, then whispered, "We're being followed." Sari didn't argue. She just nodded. They couldn't go back to the camp, Josh realized. Not yet. He didn't trust the guards now, not after how easily someone could have leaked her location. She was too valuable, too unique. If one greedy person saw her secret, it could already be up for sale in some dark corner of the galaxy. Josh led her to an old ranger outpost he remembered from his training, half buried in vines, mostly forgotten. He checked inside, cleared out an old bunk, and handed her a canteen. "You'll be safe here," he said, but his voice didn't sound sure. Sari sat quietly, clutching the canteen in both hands. "I trusted your people," she said, looking at the floor. "I thought this world was peaceful." Josh crouched in front of her, trying to meet her eyes. "Not all humans are bad," he said, "but not all are good either." He left her with a flashlight and a stun baton, then returned to the trail to check the area. By the time he reached the main diplomatic camp, the sun was already dipping low. The guards looked up as he entered, but too quickly, and too many eyes looked away. Josh felt it in his gut, something was wrong. "Where's the ambassador?" he asked, pretending to be calm in his tent. One guard said, but didn't meet his gaze. Josh walked toward the command tent, but paused just outside the flap. Inside, voices were speaking quietly, one of them unfamiliar. Another said, "She's not just a diplomat, she's worth more than this planet's GDP. Then a laugh, cold and slow. "We'll wait until nightfall." Josh backed away without making a sound, heart pounding. He had been right. Not only had someone talked, they were planning to take her, or worse, sell her. He sprinted back toward the forest, moving faster now, skipping the path, going through brush and rock. His thoughts were sharp and clear. He had to get her out, now. But when he reached the old ranger cabin, it was empty. The canteen was on the floor, water spilled, flashlight rolling in slow circles. No signs of a fight, but no signs of her either. Josh dropped to his knees and touched the dirt floor, looking for tracks. One set small light steps, hers, leading toward the back. Another set heavier boots, dragging, pulling. He saw it then, barely visible, a small shimmer of blue fabric. Stuck on a branch, his chest tightened. She had run, but not far, and they had taken her. Josh stood up, pulled his weapon, and whispered to himself, "I'm not losing her." He didn't care if she was worth jewels, planets, or nothing. She had trusted him, and that meant something. More than duty, more than orders, more than fear. Josh vanished into the forest. Again, this time not as a guard, but as a man ready to fight for the only person who needed him now. And somewhere in the shadows ahead, someone was about to regret touching the alien girl who pooped jewels. Asterisk. Josh crouched under the low branch of a dead tree, staring at the small blinking device in his hand. He had found it hanging from a nail inside the ranger cabin, hidden in plain sight. A tiny transmitter, alien design, pulsing with faint green light. Someone had tagged Sari with a tracking signal before she ran. That meant they knew where she was the whole time. They weren't chasing her, they were leading her somewhere, and he had walked right into their plan. Josh clenched his jaw and crushed the device beneath his boot, the soft crunch of metal and crystal echoing in the quiet. Then he pulled out a worn military-grade scanner from his bag and connected it to Earth's emergency satellites. The signal trail lit up on the screen. Someone had taken her toward the southern hills, where the forest met the abandoned mines, a perfect place for smugglers to hide, far from any patrol routes. As he moved quickly through the trees, Josh's thoughts raced. Why didn't anyone warn him that Kellanori girls could produce gems? Why hadn't his brief mentioned anything about Ceri's biology? And why did she look so afraid, not just of being captured, but of being exposed? He reached a ridge overlooking the mining zone, and what he saw chilled him, a hidden landing pad carved into the rock, shielded by camo nets and energy fog. Alien ships, sleek and silent, rested on the surface, their engines still warm. Josh zoomed in with his scope, heart sinking. Ceri was there inside a glowing containment dome, curled up on the floor. A tall alien in dark armor stood beside her, examining something in a small glass case inside its tools. But they weren't just taken from her, they were fresh. Glowing faintly, Josh could tell just by looking that she had been forced to produce again. The alien licked his lips and said something to a second-figure humanoid. Wearing a long coat, human, Josh's blood boiled. A human broker was involved. They had sold her out to alien gem smugglers, people who trafficked living beings for the power inside their bodies. He adjusted his rifle and thought about taking the shot, but the dome would absorb any attack. He needed to get closer, smarter. He needed information. Carefully, he pulled out a listening chip and threw it toward the camp using a sling. It landed on a nearby box and activated streaming voices into his earpiece. "Her body is adapting faster than we expected," said the alien scientist. "If we feed her the right minerals, she'll keep producing without pause. Keep her alive, but don't damage her," said the human broker the client wants. "A constant source. What about the protector? He's probably dead." The man laughed. "If not, he'll be soon." Josh turned off the feed and backed away slowly. They were treating her like a factory, not a person, like a rare machine that prints wealth. But Josh knew Ceri wasn't just rare, she was royal. That kind of gem production. It only came from ancient Kellanori bloodlines, the kind protected by law. If word got out, her entire race could fall under threat. And someone somewhere wanted that to happen. Josh ducked into a rocky crevice, opened his pack, and pulled out the emergency beacon. He had been saving it for a final fight, but this wasn't just his problem anymore. He tuned it to a frequency only military satellites could detect. Then sent out one message, 3 words, "Alien trafficking confirmed." He shut the beacon, knowing the signal might take hours to reach someone, but it was all he had. Now, he had one mission left: get Terry out alive, even if it meant burning every ship in that canyon. He watched the smugglers laugh and count her gems like they were coins. Then he whispered to himself, "They think she's a source. But they forgot she has a human now, and I don't leave people behind." Josh faded into the trees again, this time with a new plan forming. He wouldn't just rescue her. He would make sure every single one of them regretted ever laying eyes on the girl who pooped jewels. Asterix night fell like a curtain of black smoke. The hidden camp in the mining canyon came alive with alien lights, humming machines, and quiet voices. Filled with greed, Ceri was curled in the corner of the containment dome, her glowing skin now dim, her silver hair sticking to her face with sweat every few hours. They made her eat strange mineral paste rich in rare elements her body would process. She didn't cry, but her eyes burned with helplessness and shame. Josh had been watching for hours from the cliffs above, memorizing the guard patterns, studying the power lines that fed into the dome. He moved like a shadow, quiet, angry, focused. He had no team, no backup, and no mercy left. Inside his backpack were 3 handmade bombs, 1 EMP dart, and a sharp combat knife. He had found the old ranger's storage shed and stripped it for wires, coils, and explosives. He knew he couldn't fight them all, not directly, but he didn't need to win a war. He just needed 10 seconds and a little chaos near the dome. A short alien in goggles leaned over a control pad, muttering numbers. Josh waited for the moment when the guard at the fuel cell turned away. Then, like lightning, he dropped from the ledge, rolled on the dirt, and stabbed a blade straight into the fuel tank. The smell of burning chemicals filled the air. A second later, boom, flames shot into the sky. Guards yelled, lights flickered, and alarms wailed like wounded machines. Josh dashed forward, tossing a second device toward the dome's shield generator. A small shockwave burst MP enough to kill the shield for 5 seconds, and that was all he needed. He ran into the dome, lifted Tezri in his arms, and didn't stop. She gasped, weak but aware. "You came back," she whispered. "Of course I did," he said through gritted teeth, dodging laser fire. "I always do." Behind them, the smugglers screamed, but the flames blocked their path. Josh dove behind a metal crate and kicked aside. Hatch open, rolling them both into a dark tunnel under the camp. It was narrow, rusty, and smelled like oil and rot, but it was their way out. Tezri clung to him, shaking. "I'm sorry," she said, voice trembling. "I didn't want you hurt." Josh held her tighter. "You're not a problem, Tezri," he said. "You're a person, and I'm not leaving you in a cage." As they crawled through the tight passage, above them, the entire camp was in chaos. More ships arrived, private hunters, buyers, all armed and angry. They wanted their product back, but what they didn't know was Josh wasn't just running anymore. He was planning something far worse. He stopped halfway through the tunnel, reached into his jacket, and pulled out the final device, a crystal container inside it. A jewel Tezri had unknowingly dropped back in the forest. He had rigged it. With an overload core and a remote switch, it was now a bomb. He placed it behind a leaking gas pipe and whispered, "Let them try to chase us." By the time the smugglers found the tunnel entrance, Josh and Tezri had already surfaced on the other side of the ridge. As they limped into the cold night wind, Josh turned, pressed the button. A second later, the earth behind them shook. A fireball burst from the rocks, turning the canyon into a burning graveyard of greed and stolen lives. Tezri looked back, her eyes wide. "You destroyed it," she whispered. Josh nodded, his face lit by the fire. "They wanted to use you," he said. "Now they'll never use anyone again." They kept walking, two shadows against a red sky. One was a human, once a soldier, now something more. The other, an alien girl who had been treated like treasure but found something far more rare, someone who saw her as human. They walked until the fires were no longer behind them, until their legs trembled and their lungs hurt with every breath. Josh found a hidden cave behind a frozen waterfall, long forgotten and silent. He led Tezri inside, helping her sit near the rock wall. Her skin was dimmer now, not glowing like before. Her breaths were shallow, and her eyes blinked slowly. She had given too much. Her body wasn't just exhausted, was broken from forced production. Josh lit a small fire and laid his jacket over her. "You're safe now," he whispered. But even he didn't believe it fully. He had seen the ships in the sky, more than just smugglers. These were elite trackers, people who didn't stop until their target was caged or dead. Tezri tried to speak, but only managed to whisper, "There's something I didn't tell you." Josh leaned closer, ready to listen. "My body. It doesn't just produce jewels," she said. "It reacts to fear, to stress, to pain." She opened her hand and showed him a small gem she had just created. It was black, glowing red from within. "This one is dangerous," she said. "If it breaks, it burns through everything." Josh stared at it, understanding something for the first time. She wasn't just a rare life form. She was a weapon, a living feeling, breathing power source that could change everything, and she hated it. "I don't want to be this," she said, tears falling silently. "I just wanted to see Earth, to live normal, to have a friend." Josh didn't speak right away. He took the gem gently and placed it into a cloth, wrapping it like it was a baby bird. "Then let's find someone who can help," he said. "Not use you, not trade you, just help." The next morning, they moved again. Josh avoided the roads, using old recon maps from his military days. They found an underground relay station abandoned, but still holding weak signal access. Inside was a dusty terminal, flickering and slow, but usable. Josh cracked open the system and searched for anyone who might still be loyal. He didn't trust his old commanders anymore, but there was one name buried deep in his encrypted contacts. Dr. Verena, rebel culinary scientist who had left the Empire years ago and now worked in secret on Earth. She believed in peace between species, and more than once, she had helped people escape the Empire's dark rules. Josh sent a coded message, simple but urgent. "I have something precious, scared and hunted. Can you help us?" They waited, eating ration bars and staying quiet. Sari barely spoke. Her strength was returning slowly, but her spirit was still cracked. Josh sat beside her, telling her stories from Earth about music, oceans, the stars above Kansas. She smiled weakly, resting her head against his shoulder. "You're not like the others," she whispered. "Good," Josh replied, "because I'm not here to be like them." Later that night, the terminal beeped. A reply appeared, short and cold, but real. "Come alone. Bring her. No signals. No weapons. Coordinates attached." Josh memorized the location and old research dome on the edge of a red desert. It would take days to reach, and the path ahead was open, exposed, and full of risk. But it was their only chance, not just to escape but to understand why she was born this way, and why powerful people were willing to kill for what she carried inside her. As they packed their things, Josh noticed something outside, a symbol, etched into a tree knot, natural, not old. It was a warning. Someone had been there before them, watching. He pulled Sari close and whispered, "We leave now," and in the distance, far beyond the cave, a soft humming filled the night sky. It was the sound of a tracker's ship low, quiet and deadly. They were running again, but this time, the enemy wasn't just greedy, it was personal. The desert was not empty, it was watching. As Josh and Tezeri stepped onto the cracked red ground, the wind carried whispers of heat and forgotten things. The sky above was pale orange, the sun like a silent judge hanging over them. They moved without speaking, both tired, both alert. Their footprints left trails that would vanish in minutes. But someone or something had already been there. The coordinates led them to a dome half swallowed by sand. It was built long ago, once a research center. Now a broken shell of glass and steel. Josh raised his hand to signal, and a thin blue light scanned his body from a hidden turret. A few seconds later, the outer door creaked open, letting them inside. The air inside was colder, artificial, filtered by old machines still working in silence. Dr. Varen stood by a table, wearing a thick gray coat. Her face lined with age, but sharp with purpose. Her eyes locked onto Tezeri, and for a moment she didn't breathe. "You brought her," she said quietly. "I brought someone who needs answers." Josh replied. Sari stayed behind him, unsure, her arms wrapped around herself. Dr. Varen stepped forward, holding out a scanner that buzzed as it neared the girl's skin. "This is no ordinary culinary," she said, almost in awe. "Do you know who she really is?" Josh and Tezeri exchanged confused looks. "She said she was a diplomat," he answered. Varen shook her head slowly, her eyes narrowing. "She's more than that. She's direct royal blood." Sari blinked, confused, My mother never told me anything like that, she said softly. Because they were hiding you, Varen replied. Not just from enemies, but from your own people. She walked to the console and pressed a button. Holograms lit up the room. Ancient bloodline. Charts. Old battle records, a symbol glowing at the top. The black core, Varen whispered. A rare mutation in royal females. It allows the body to convert raw minerals into jewelsies but also into weapons. Bombs, even energy cells for ships. Josh felt a chill crawl down his spine. All this time, she was carrying that inside her. Vera nodded. She is the reason the smugglers came. The reason your mission was compromised. They weren't just after her body. They were after her legacy. Taziri stepped forward slowly, her voice barely holding together. So I was born to be used. No, Viren said sharply. You were born to decide what this power means. But others, they want to control it, and they're coming. As if the words had summoned them, an alarm lit up the room. Red lights flashed. Now the console crackled with sound. Unidentified ships entering orbit. Multiple. Josh ran to the screen. 3 ships, moving fast, hunting for something or someone. They found us, he said, voice low and steady. Varen began typing furiously, activating old defenses and sending a backup signal through a buried line. I can cloak this dome for a few hours maybe, she said. But if they send ground troops, we'll be trapped. Josh turned to Tesseri, who stood very still now, her hands glowing faintly. Her breath calm. I don't want to run anymore, she said. I want to fight, but not like them. I want to choose what I become. Varen stepped closer, placing something in her hand, a small device. Shaped like a star, this will help you focus your production. You won't lose control anymore. Sari looked at it, then looked at Josh. I trust you, she said. I've got you, he replied, without hesitation. Outside, the sound of engines grew louder, the ground trembled, and the future came with it. But this time, the girl who pooped jewels was no longer afraid. And the human by her side was no longer just a guard. They were something else now, a warning. Dust swirled through the air as the first ship landed. Its legs crushed the dry red soil, and the engines hissed like something alive. Inside the dome, Josh stood by the window, watching shadows move between the rocks. More were coming, soldiers. In dark armor, silent and efficient. Not bounty hunters this time. These were professionals. Sent by someone who knew exactly what Sari was and what she could become. Tesseri stood in the center of the dome. Her silver hair braided back, her robe replaced by a reinforced vest. She held the focus device Dr. Varen had given her. It pulsed with her heartbeat, glowing softly. The jewels she had created in fear before red, black, unstable, were now stored safely in a crystal case nearby. Weapons, energy, and evidence, all born from her body, but no longer forced out. Dr. Viren activated the last defense grid, then stepped away from the controls. This is your moment now, she said quietly, not mine. Josh looked at Sari and said, whatever happens, we stay together. She gave a small nod, then whispered, let's show them what a human and an alien can do. Outside, the invaders moved in 6 figures, cloaked. Surrounding the dome with scanners and weapons drawn, they spoke no words, only signals. They didn't expect a fight. They expected surrender. Sari stepped forward, lifted her hand, and dropped one of the glowing gems into a slot inside the floor. The dome's walls shimmered, then vanished, revealing the desert and the enemy beyond. Josh raised his weapon, but didn't fire. Instead, he walked beside her, armor cracked, eyes steady. The lead soldier stepped forward and removed his helmet, a alien noble. Cold and sharp-faced, return with us, he said, or die here. Taziri didn't flinch. I was never yours, she said. I am not your weapon. He raised his hand. But before he could signal the attack, The ground beneath him flashed. A wall of light erupted as the gem beneath them activated, forming a barrier that knocked the soldiers backward. Josh charged, tackling one of them into the dirt, stealing their blaster. Cerie stepped toward the fallen leader, her hands glowing now, this time with calm power. Not pain. The air around her rippled, and tiny gems formed along her arms, floating, rotating, alive. "Go home," she said, "or you'll see what royalty really means." One soldier stood. Again, weapon aimed, but hesitated. Josh stood between them, eyes daring him to fire. Then slowly, the soldier lowered his weapon, the others followed. They backed away, collected the wounded, and retreated to their ship. No words, no threats, just silence and respect. The ship lifted off without another shot. The sky cleared, and the desert wind returned. Cerie exhaled and sank to her knees, tears running down her cheeks, not from fear, but from relief. She had faced them without breaking. She had chosen her future. Josh sat beside her and smiled. "Guess you're not just a diplomat," he said. "No," she whispered, leaning against him. "I'm someone who finally got to decide." Weeks passed, and the story spread quietly across the stars of a girl who made jewels, but gave the galaxy something more rare: hope of a human who didn't sell her, didn't fear Herb, stood beside her. Cerie later became a voice for peace between worlds, and Josh, he stayed by her side not as a bodyguard, but as something stronger, a friend, a partner, a symbol. And whenever someone asked where it all began, she would smile and say, "It started the day I ran into the forest to use the bathroom." Then she'd laugh softly and add, "And he followed me not to stop me, but to make sure I came back safe." Because sometimes the most powerful things in the galaxy start in the most unexpected way.